there will be a trend or a change in the industry where we are not only using drawings to make decisions, but we're using models instead. And what I mean by decisions is, we all know that drawings are the instrument of service for most projects. There's going to be a point in time where models become the instrument of service, meaning you build straight from the model. Any change that gets changed in the model gets, translated down into the field, and there isn't even a paper trail, right? Is a scary thing to say, and I think a brooding concept, but we're going to get there because of the way the industry is working. There's more model based workflows, there's more model design conversations. It's just going to be a natural transition in the future.
Hey, it's Jose with Buildings 2.0. Today I'm joined by Joseph Good, Senior VDC Manager at Gilbane Building Company. Joe's path runs from Legos in Hong Kong to a Tesla internship to leading VDC at one of the biggest construction companies in the world. We dig into three big ideas: clean, connected data, not flashy 3D models. It wins projects. How to drive adoption by starting with the Fiat, not the Ferrari. Simple wins like weekly drone footage, then scaling. And then finally, why hybrid field plus tech roles will lead the future, and how VDC bridges the gap while contracts and culture keep the paper alive. If you're a BIM manager, field engineer, or just a seasoned super, this one's for you. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, thanks for listening to another episode of Buildings 2.0. Today I'm speaking with Joseph Good, Senior VDC Manager at Gilbane Building Company. Joseph, thanks for joining with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Great to be on.
Joe, I've known you for some time, but take me back. You're at the intersection of VDC, BIM, construction, just massive projects. Take me back. Why buildings in the first place?
Well, I think a lot of people in construction or the AEC industry could relate to what I'm about to say. I grew up playing Legos, right? That's kind of everyone's like first exposure to building things and to, being able to discover and kind of use your imagination to create whatever you want. So I had two toys growing up. I had Legos and then Hot Wheels. And so that's definitely shaped my interests. I also was lucky enough when I was younger to move around the world, and we had a brief stint in Hong Kong, China, and of course the architecture in Hong Kong is incredible. And I was what, preschool, I think, so it was an insane experience for little Joe to see all these cool buildings and the types of things that could be built. I had no clue that kind of stuff was possible. So that piqued my interest in architecture. I think engineering was always fascinating to me, how things worked, and kind of shaped my career based off of those interests that I had as a kid. And that's what ultimately led me to construction. I've had a very winding path, but ultimately that's what landed me in BDC and specifically at Gilbane.
Yeah. Tell me about the winding path. I mean, before, at the forefront of VDC, you were an architectural engineer. Take us further back. What would that path look like?
Right. So when I applied to college, I applied to like 15 schools because I had no idea still what my career was going to be. I knew what my interests were, but not my career. And I actually went to South Carolina, University of South Carolina, studying international business as my first degree. And it took me about like a month and a half to realize that, oh, I made a huge mistake. Most of the other schools I applied for architecture or engineering. So it was weird. Like I chose the outlier, but you make dumb decisions in your life. And that was probably the best time to make a bad decision was very early in college because I could quickly identify, hey, this isn't for me. Let me make a change and transition. And so the winding path got me into engineering, and then it got me back to Cincinnati where I was growing up at the time, where there was a brand new program at the University of Cincinnati, which wasn't really available when I applied the first time for college. It was architectural engineering. And that was something I didn't even know was out there in the field. I kind of thought, you did one or the other, or you did, mechanical engineering, or you became an architect and do like a hybrid kind of role. So I applied for architectural engineering, and then I got really lucky because I started liking what I was doing. And I also was at a school that advocated for co-ops and work experience while you're getting your degree, which was huge for me because the whole time wasn't just classwork or studio work. You could take a pause every semester and do hands-on work experience instead of just, straight back-to-back courses. So I
Yeah.
did that. And in college, I got an internship, doing MEP, engineering, architectural design, interior architecture, construction management. I was able to like hit each of those industries in separate working internships that helped me pay for college, but also got me through, my 5-year degree.
Holy moly. So you sat in various sides of the table from engineering to interiors to architecture.
Yeah. And the co-op program is what it's called at Cincinnati. And a lot of colleges have similar programs, but I always advocate for that. Or when I'm hiring people, I kind of look for people that have those types of work experience in college, because it helps you identify what you don't like as well. Like if you study 4 years as a mechanical engineer, then you get into construction management and then you realize, oh gosh, like this is just paper management, or I'm just processing RFIs. I'm not really doing any like design work or anything that I like. You might be stuck or feel like you have to revert back to school or change your job. So, the co-ops really help you, you know, identify a path and expose you to what the industry really is, right? You learn more in those internships than you do in coursework. Obviously, you need the foundation in your coursework, but you get the hands-on experience at a younger stage. So that was really, pivotal for me, just having hands-on experience in college to say, you know what, I don't think I like being a project engineer, but I like the construction environment. I don't think I really want to be spending the next 5 years pursuing my professional engineering degree or license, because I don't really have the desire to design things so much, but I like managing the design and just, supporting a construction process. And so that meandering path led me to VDC, because it's new in the industry, newish in the industry, but really focuses on the intersection of all three of those portions of the industry, right? Construction, engineering, and
Right.
architecture.
Right. And at some point in that path, you worked at Tesla even before your current roles, among other places. I mean,
Yeah.
sitting on that side of the table, what does, architectural engineering look like from that side?
When I was there, I was an architect, and everybody thought that meant like system architecture, because I was working at a startup, Tesla. This was, a couple years ago, but they all assumed like I was a coding engineer or software engineer. So I always had to explain, no, they actually have their own construction management team, and I'm a part of that, designing some of their buildings. That was a moonshot, if I'm being honest. I was thinking about my next internship, and I'm like, let me shoot for the stars and like see what I could apply for and see if I get accepted. And it's exactly what I did. I think I had a good background and a good application, but still it was just a shot in the dark. And
Right.
they had an internship opening for me at one of their projects in Reno, Nevada. And I went. It was one of the best summers of my life. Just the fact that I could, be exposed to a company like Tesla still in their startup phase. They called themselves a startup company at that time, but that was right when they were getting ready to design the Model 3. So this was before like their huge boom in sales and their huge worldwide impact. But yeah, it was just right timing, really fun, great experience, and a result of me just going for it and really reaping the benefits. I mean, every interview that I had since that Tesla experience, they always ask about it, and it's always a cool thing to talk about, kind of hang up on my shelf as something that I did. So
Yeah.
it was a wonderful experience.
Yeah. I'm curious, as a springboard to where you are today, again, you're kind of on the front row of what I consider to be, one of the best construction companies working in an emerging area. And I suspect you're probably the connector amongst a bunch of different folks and stakeholders and departments. What's your view look like? The good, the bad? I mean, what's it look like over there?
It's yeah, great insight. I mean, you in thrusting yourself as like as this in betweener between design and construction, that kind of brings a lot of responsibility, because it means that you should at least know what you're talking about. You should be, cohesive and bringing ideas and concepts to the table that, you know, will stick with leaders and with veterans in the industry, right? You can't just come to, these situations unprepared or only knowing one half of the side, right? So it's a very niche part of the construction industry, but it's super critical. And I think VDC maybe really isn't always seen as that nexus point. It's more like pre-con, people call that, or people that are in early design from a construction management standpoint. But in that role, right, the good is you can be influential and you can make good decisions for your projects at an early stage so that, you're setting up the project for success, you're avoiding conflicts, you're avoiding issues down the road, saving time and money for construction bottom dollar. I mean, that's what the client really, can you build this on time and can you come under budget, right? Making those early decisions helps that. The bad and the ugly is contract relationship is always a struggle. Like parties might not always be willing to share information or be that collaborative early on. I think tech adoption is a huge issue or a hurdle, I would say, early in project planning and kind of in what we're doing. In that you get a lot of people in the industry that say, well, I've been doing it one way my whole career. That's worked for me. I don't see the need to use, this new tech or do BIM coordination or, I don't know why we need to be overly complicated in this process. Or you also have people that like are really passionate about their processes and procedures and not necessarily willing to adopt to new ones. People may have perfected, a document management strategy that all relies on just email or whatever. It's a bad example, but they may not be willing to, adopt a new software that just came out that is, more collaborative and integrates with other software, right? There's kind of barriers to
Right.
that people put in those conversations of, well, it's too much money, it's too complicated. I've had success other ways, or I'm not willing to share this data, right? You get all of that as the bad and the ugly
Yeah.
in this
Yeah.
space.
So we exist in an industry that likes a lot of jargon, like acronyms, BIM, LOD, VDC, the list goes on. For a non-technical developer or say a corporate occupier that just manages a ton of space, demystify for them, like why does it all, what role does it play, when,
Right.
like, how do you demystify your role?
You kind of have to learn how to navigate, different, I guess, atmospheres. There's sometimes you need to be very high level and just speak to general concepts like, if we implement this, we will save X. Or if, you don't do this, the project's going to fail. You very high level conversations that are like also like alarmist or might, call on emotions of people to then have a reaction, right?
Right.
You may need to straddle down and get a little bit more detailed and explain, why this one process isn't working because of a hardware issue. And then you get really nerdy in your jargon, right? So regulating between those atmospheres is definitely a skill that's needed to, I guess, answer your question. And, to be in that high level space and like learn how to continue to come down, is challenging because, you might lose people with how much you talk about the detail or how many acronyms you throw out there, right? So what I like to do in any situation is always assume that I'm speaking to somebody who knows nothing about my job or nothing about the role or has like little to no context. And I really almost always start with data management. Like, forget VDC, forget reality capture, any these construction related terms. Just think about data, right? Every project through its life cycle is like filled with data, whether that's, emails, drawings, specs, estimates, whatever. All of that data like gets transferred between any of the many parties on a project. And so what I think my job does very well is data management and recommendations for data management, but it's never really explained that way. So I always like taking that approach because it's a little bit more, you can grasp that understanding a little bit better. That when I'm saying something or when I'm meaning something like we need to have a shared model to then produce a coordination shop drawing. That really what I'm saying is we need one source of truth for how we're coordinating this building so that we can produce a set of plans that we all have seen and then we can build off of, right? That's really like organizing data so that it's clean and consistent. So like starting at that level of explaining that it's really data management or it's just information sharing, that gets people in. And then you can go down to details as much as you want to.
I resonate with that quite a bit. I think being able to oscillate at like the high level, like why does this stuff even matter? Maybe to put you kind of in a different scenario. So now you're in a room with 20 other BIM managers. Tell us something that we have to stop doing. You're in a room around the table. You've got folks from the design side, engineering side, construction side. What's something you wish folks would stop doing?
That's really great question. It's normally, in those situations, at least from like a GC or CM standpoint, right? General contractor or construction manager standpoint, you're kind of like a decision maker slash you're controlling those conversations. So you're really setting the tone for how things should go, what's the correct process. And, despite whatever best tech is out there, whatever best, you know, solutions or hardware that you recommend or whatever, really a successful effort depends on good teamwork and good collaboration. So anything that detracts from that is probably what I would recommend you stop doing. Be transparent in how your process is going and how your progress is going, being transparent in calling out an issue and not being afraid that, somebody's going to shoot you down or tell you, oh, that's going to delay the schedule, right? I think that there's a lot of bad communication in construction projects, almost every project I'm on, right? It's always about growing a good team and navigating the ups and downs of teamwork. But I think what people can stop do or what people should stop doing, whatever, withholding information, initially reacting, causing blame or pointing blame on people, and kind of being honest about your work is always, appreciated. The less kind of communication strife you have in a group effort, the better I've seen the process play out. So uh, that's probably my answer. Right?
Yeah.
It's a great question.
In your time in the role, have you found that specific tech, I mean, to get really in the weeds, like even today versus say 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, if you had to kind of build a toolkit like of things you absolutely need these days, you talked about the importance of communication and whatnot. What's the tech in that toolkit? Like what are you using today that perhaps we weren't using 3, 4, or 5 years ago?
Great question. There's so many things you can answer with that. I think ultimately it comes down to what technology gives you the best tools for data management. And so I always say any common data environment that works or functions well for that existing group is what we should push for. And so what I mean by that is a single environment where you can do multiple tasks or you can keep information in one place so that you're not flipping between websites or flipping between folders or email chains, right? I mean, there really isn't a singular tool out there that does exactly that for an entire project, but there's a lot that are close, right? Autodesk Construction Cloud is a great example of a common data environment. Procore is a common data environment. These, this software that is industry relevant and top in the industry, those are major ones. Just anytime you can keep information in one location and reference it in that one environment, I'm always pushing. So I'd say that's kind of the main answer. But then also you always want to have tools that are compatible to your lowest common denominator. If you keep everything that you're doing from like a BIM coordination standpoint in Revit or in Navisworks or Revisto or any of these, these giants, you're limiting your user base of who can access that and who can be involved with that to people that have experience in those tools, that have time to train themselves, or, are over the shoulder of your VDC manager, right?
Right.
So if you can use a tool that caters to the lowest common denominator, that would go with that too. So ACC, you can put a model on ACC and then anyone with internet connection can look at the model and then fly around that model. So that would be a process in which you're not withholding information, you're being transparent, you're using a common data environment, you're sharing it in one place where everybody can access it, and you're limiting the number of tools, barriers that people have so that they can look at it.
Yeah. I mean, you've talked about the importance of democratizing building and like just data in general for a project. Double click into like what kinds of data are we talking about? Like what does it boil down to, and like what, or rather, who benefits from the kind of data you're talking about?
Yeah, I think everybody benefits on the project team. Ultimately, it's the client and the owner, the person with the money, who's paying for the project. They will benefit from us using any efficiency that we can gain.
Yeah.
Some of this data, it's drawings and specs. Obviously, you have nowadays on big projects and small projects, you have data that's getting pushed. Drawings and specs are getting pushed in phases. They're not necessarily the concept of like, we have all of our design complete, all of our specs complete. Here you guys go, build off of that. That's getting rarer and rarer, less common, I should say, where, maybe we have an early bid package that we release now. So here's that plan set, but it's not the whole plan set.
Right.
Future packages come, and then you could have duplicates, or you could have, misaligned information, or, maybe they changed the grid line layout, or maybe they forgot to update their background, and then it's a whole mess, right? So any environment in which you can have that clear consistency of how the drawings have progressed is critical. And that's the main data that I'm talking about. If you can create issues or markups on one plan that your whole team can see, and that, if one person has a question about a drawing, and then they isolate themselves, send an email to the designer, get that answered, and then another person a month later has the same question, right? We're wasting time because we
Right.
got that answer or already asked it, but then we're not communicating with one another, or at least visibly showing one another that, hey, here's my little RFI that I put through, or here's my markup that's been answered, my observation, whatever. So, yeah, I mean, democratizing it as much as you can basically means everybody has access. You have an organized way of sharing that information in a concise environment, and you know, choosing workflows that benefit the greater team. You're not letting, your teams kind of do whatever they want in terms of create a Bluebeam studio session for the facade, you know, design review that's separate from how somebody's doing a Bluebeam studio session for the structural design review. Let's try to combine those separate efforts into one location. You know, I should also speak to the fact that there will be a trend or a change in the industry where we are not only using drawings to make decisions, but we're using models instead. And what I mean by decisions is, we all know that drawings are the instrument of service for most projects. There's going to be a point in time where models become the instrument of service, meaning you build straight from the model. Any change that gets changed in the model gets, translated down into the field, and there isn't even a paper trail, right? Is a scary thing to say, and I think a brooding concept, but we're going to get there because of the way the industry is working. There's more model based workflows, there's more model design conversations, and it's just going to be a natural transition in the future.
Yeah. You know, I recall in my college days, we were talking about there's a future where, we submit permit sets or, construction sets or whatever as the model itself. That was in 2012. So we're in 2025, 13, 12, 13 years later. And I suspect we've been talking about like, what's keeping us from making this transition? Is it adoption? Obviously, permit sets have to do with municipalities and regulations and other things kind of outside of that. But like, why is it taking so long?
It's adoption from it's maybe three things. Definitely adoption, and I think the, courage for a construction management team to say this is what we're going to do, or this is how we're going to build the project, and then sticking with that innovative strategy of let's improve the LOD of the model, and then that becomes our shop drawing, right? It's a very courageous thing to do. Um, So getting buy-in and getting, adoption from everyone on the project that, we can all stand behind this vision, that's very challenging to do. I think another thing is the collaboration and willingness of the design team to do something like that as well. I think if you have like a typical design bid build project, you're really limited in how much you can influence what you're getting from the designer, right? If it's more of a design build or kind of one of these more new age approaches, I know they've been around for a while, but really they're still not entirely prevalent across the whole industry. Those environments are a little bit more conducive towards making that courageous push or making a group decision that, this is how we're going to handle drawing evolution on this project. And then I think the third factor is what does the owner and the client want to do? And what are they willing to, I guess, strategize for their project? I think that's a big barrier always, is if we can push like the coolest tech, we can push like a robot walking on site, taking photos, but ultimately if nobody's going to pay for it, then it kind of falls flat. I mean, it's very much, do we have the funds and the vision and the buy-in for this? Yes, then something gets executed.
You've advocated for hybrid approach, hybrid roles. What does that mean? What I guess is it specific to folks like you coming into a BIM BDC data management role? What does that mean?
There are more college careers and curriculums now that are more for like creating a BIM manager, becoming a BIM manager, becoming a VDC tech, or you learn Revit and kind of more of this software in college than you did before, which is great. But I will say, I think that too far down that path, like everybody becoming a VDC engineer is not the right call, because then we lose that connection to construction management and understanding the engineering of a building, how systems in the building work, and how the finances of a construction project function, right? And how that influences decisions on the job. Like you, you can't have the whole industry, the youth in the industry going towards just the shiny object, right? You still need that foundation of project engineers, field engineers, superintendents out in the field who know the mechanics of the project. So kind of what I advocate for is it'd be great for people out of college or even people already in the industry that have experience in field engineering or they're superintendents in the field. Give them insight into some of these tools, like teach them, train them how to leverage the model and leverage reality capture tools. Just give them tastes of it, and then if they bite and if they show interest in that, they're going to apply that towards their normal job and improve their job in ways that I couldn't think of. Right? I don't know how the superintendent actually functions on a project. I can make assumptions, but every time that our teams interact with the field operations staff, what I mean by that, superintendents, safety managers, field engineers, people on the job trailer. Every time our team interacts with them, they always get new ideas of ways to use the model, right? Like, we are in that space anyway, just thinking of the model and what it can do, but we're not really making all of the connections of like just a simple section of the model can do so many things for a superintendent, can inform so many decisions in the field for him, or be like that battering ram for him to like get work done on time. So hybrid roles I really love because you have your foundational knowledge, you have your foundational interest in, whatever you did in college or whatever you're doing on the job site, but you're giving yourself like snippets of other parts of the industry and kind of giving that whole round, a well-rounded approach towards, your career development. And that, like, the more you can understand how a designer thinks, the better you can help manage good and bad design drawings, right? The better you can understand how the model is progressing, the better you can manage your trade contractors for, pay invoicing or pay applications and, progress complete reports. So, yeah, I'm always for that.
And yet, your call for kind of a more diverse skill set, you're fighting the good fight, but the numbers are showing, and I'm sure you've read all of this about like the construction industry, like losing the vast majority of the folks in it in a few years, suggesting that we're going to be facing labor shortages I think to an order of magnitude we're already facing. Is it just inevitable? Like, are we ultimately looking at more folks in your position where you're essentially managing robots?
It's a fair thing to say, and it's a great insight, I think, into the future. I mean, back to Legos. Like we're gonna build buildings like Legos one day, where it's basically, you know, all modular, all prefab, or it's built by robots and it's completely automated and perfected, right? I mean, we would be ignorant to assume otherwise. Innovations like that in the future. Construction is always slow to adopt those innovations, and you still need people in the field picking up tools, installing things, inspecting. You still need that you will always need that human touch and approach to a project. So, you know, I, I think you will find more people in a diverse role because I think it'll be easier to build off of the software that we have, and it'll be easier to do more things, and we can reduce the amount of time it takes and the cost it takes. But you still will need professionals in those seats. And I think, you know, my hope for the future generations of construction is I think more people are deciding very specialized career paths earlier in their life, right? Either going to trade schools or deciding that they want to Christian firm, just taking non-traditional approaches to schooling, I think brings them into the construction industry with different perspectives and different opportunities too. But I also think it's definitely on us as current industry professionals to be advocates for what we're doing and to expose what roles are in the industry right now. Because I guarantee you, if we went to a college career fair and we just did a presentation on what like my current job is and what even a pre-con manager's job is, I think a lot of college students would be like, I had no clue that was a thing, or I didn't even know that was an opportunity. And now I'm showing interest, or now, I've heard about something that I didn't know existed before. So
Yeah.
that's my hope and kind of my call to people in similar roles as me. Is we have to advocate. We have to build up that younger generation.
Yeah. You said a lot that I resonate with, and that is echoed through a lot of my conversations with folks in BIM about even going far back. You mentioned BIM or VDC kind of being seen as this kind of niche where on the one hand, you're describing an interesting discrepancy where on the one hand, you're kind of the purveyor of all things data, which presumably should be at kind of the core of a business. On the other hand, it's still kind of very much seen as a niche in certain cases by other BIM managers I've heard. We get treated as kind of like the BIM guys or girls in the IT department. You can kind of get, confused there. Take a look, and I think we have more tools, like we have more software. I think probably the last thing you want right now is like another software subscription to add to your tech stack. I think that we're not lacking the tech, and yet data suggests that we're still behind, still going over budget. Like, how do I reconcile all this? So we got more tools than ever. We got folks that are paying attention to data. Like, what do we got to tweak?
I think the approach that we've had at Gilbane has been very successful. Really learned this from my mentors in the industry and the former associates that I've worked with, current associates. And we have the approach and the mindset that like, if I can't sell like the Fiat for my project, why would I go for the Ferrari? Meaning, if there's a solution or software that's super expensive, latest tech, everyone in the industry is using it, but it's very expensive and they know it's expensive. Why would we go with that if we know that there's a cheaper, kind of more bootstrapped solution that's out there already? Like having that kind of scrappy mindset has really helped us at Gilbane because the tech industry and the software industry, Silicon Valley, like they're just moving at the speed of light. They're basically going by what's the latest and greatest software and who's got the best funding. But then if you stick with one of those companies for more than 2 years, you realize that now they've become third place. And then there's two other people that are ahead of them now that maybe we wanted their tech. So, excuse me, finding ways to do like a scrappy bootstrap effort before going for the really high end expensive offering kind of helps you with the buy-in. It helps you with teams recognizing the value of things. And in the longer run, once you have that trust and built that reputation with your project teams or your business units, then they go for the high-end software because it's like, look, I proved to you guys that this stuff is valuable. I proved to you that using this software has helped the project and has helped the project team be more efficient. It's not just a VDC thing, it's a project-wide thing. Here's the work I'm putting into it that makes it cheap, makes it bootstrap. For a little bit more money, we can save time and then I can apply my efforts towards something else, right? Like that's why I'm giving this long answer because the way that we've done this at Gilbane is like we haven't gone straight for the shiny object and said, oh, there's a brand new laser scan on the market. Let's just buy it right away, test it out. No, like we've kind of investigated or we've used maybe like a second tier option and then built the business case of why it's valuable, and then we go for it if we can or if a project can afford it. The need.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you build that kind of advocacy inside the organization? I've heard often how a VDC manager might be in a scenario where they've been asked to create some sort of protocol system, some sort of something for the firm, and they're very much starting from zero, meaning like they not only have to draft standards, but then are somehow expected to connect all the dots and bring advocacy and bring the field teams and the project management and estimators and contracting and all this stuff. I mean, it's a tall order. Like as a VDC manager, perhaps just entering into this spotlight. I mean, any advice? Like, how do you start to build a coalition of folks? And like, is there a particular role, maybe a PM or an estimator that tends to gravitate towards you? I mean, any advice for kind of a young BIM manager, VDC manager?
Great question, and it's relevant. We're kind of expanding in regions right now where we're tackling the same problem of, I guess, challenge of how do we build a business plan in these areas that like maximize our efforts and provide jobs for ourselves, pretty much, right? I'll do it in two approaches, I guess, or two answers. Where your target audience has to be the project field team, the doers on your project. So what I mean by that, superintendents, field engineers, and then probably project managers, but people that need efficiencies in their job, need these tools to make micro decisions on the project. If you can give those working groups, a tool or a process that helps their job, they won't forget it and they'll keep coming back to you for more. And then you're building a relationship with this project team and then they advocate for you. And then the next job they go to, they want you. The next job they go to, so on. You've built kind of your reputation. You've started with the doers on the project. And then what you have to do is you have to make that connection to the business unit leaders, the project executives of like, look what I've done for the superintendents on the project. They see value in this. I know how to expand this so I can support every project and not just this one project, right? That's the approach you have to take is, you start with like the working groups, the doers, give them good, resources, whatever, build those champions of your job, and then they will advocate for you. But then you have to have the wherewithal to like, speak to that and promote yourself a little bit, right? Talk yourself up. So
Yeah.
I think that's the one approach. The other one is, figure out what can you do that supports every project, not just like the mega projects or the sexy projects that you may be working on, but what's something you can bring to every project that you could improve the value? Something dumb that, I call it dumb because you may not immediately make this connection to construction, but like doing drone flights on your construction site, taking just photos, top down of the site and showing the progression of your project. That's a low cost, low effort support for your project, which is so valuable. You have no idea how many owners and clients like beg for drone video footage, and it's very low cost. But that's something you can do on every project. And then once every project feels supported, raise your bar, choose another service offering, and kind of, build yourself up. And then sooner or later, you're doing all of these types of things on every project. And then you've validated the need for staffing, for costs, for future software, and for creating efficiencies in your own.
Rapid fire questions. You're only able to answer with yes or no, and then maybe one sentence.
I know I talk a lot.
No. This is actually I want to put you on the hot seat here. So first one, lump sum, design bid build.
Oh boy.
Another, I guess maybe phrased differently, lump sum, as well as just kind of open book. Which one you prefer?
I'd say open book. Yeah. You are less restricted and anytime, any chance you can buy time to properly set up your project and put a lot of money up front, and truly plan and pan out the job, you will save money at the end of the job. But you may not you feel like you have that push and pull if you have to come up with, a GMP or something, right?
Is VR gonna take off on the site ever?
Data shows not really, but the hardware still has lots of areas of improvement. So I'm still hopeful.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one area where I'm still looking to understand. Like I'm putting myself in your shoes about, again, to your point, how do you communicate with field teams on the site? Like if I'm 20, 30-year veteran in construction and you're telling me to put on a piece of hardware to understand my site, I have to imagine that's an uphill battle, but
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure that one out. BIM or CAD? Why?
It's broader. I think CAD is a little bit older too, in terms of people make the associations with line work or 2D, and people make 3D association with BIM. I will say though, I am definitely a stickler for how the term BIM is used. It's a pet peeve when people say BIM model, because to me it's like ATM machine. It's like a double, like,
Right.
building information model,
Right.
whatever. We all have our little pet peeves, but BIM is just a broader tool, and I think more people are.
For younger Joe, looking back 10, 15 years, just coming in, any advice? Like now having the benefit of hindsight, your own experience, what you've seen, the business, the operations, all of it. What would you tell a young Joe coming in?
I would tell him shoot for the stars, create opportunities for yourself. I mean, some people get lucky, some people have connections in construction, or some people, have tons of grit and work their butts off to, you know, get the career that they've always wanted. But I do believe in creating opportunities for yourself. That's a real thing. College, with your professors, seeking internships, shooting for the stars, like reaching out to Tesla. I didn't even know that there was a construction internship at Tesla when I applied. I kind of just said, "You guys take me? Like I'll do anything." Right? I
Right.
think, seizing opportunities, going to career fairs. Don't waste your free time after school or after your job, just scrolling your phone. I mean, it's so critical that, like, if you want to be successful in any industry, but if you want to be successful in AEC or kind of be on the bleeding edge of this industry, you always have to be thinking about, how can I improve myself? What opportunities can I create? How can I basically learn and continue to teach myself new things? Don't be stagnant with, "Oh, I've took this course, I learned Revit, I'm good. I don't need to improve anymore." Right?
Joe, this has been really fun.
Yeah. I really appreciate it. It's been great conversation. It's been mostly me talking, but that's okay.
I love it. I mean, this is a 101. I mean, for folks coming into the industry, this is a must listen to. I think you touched on a variety of different subjects that I think not lost on me. You could probably spend an hour on any subject, on the business of BIM, on the operations, on galvanizing folks around the table. So this has been really fun.
I appreciate it, man. This was a great experience, and I hope I, reach some audience. I know younger Joe would have loved a podcast like this. So really appreciate it, Jose.